Hundreds in the hospital, a remote part of India picking up the pieces after a devastating earthquake. The latest on the recovery efforts there this morning.
Plus, passing through the bad experience one family had in the Duke City that has them saying they will never come back.
Also, the latest on the investigation into a deadly New Year's Eve shooting. What police say prompted a pair of men to open fire at a party. Good morning, 6 a.m. here on KRQE News 13 this morning. I'm Adam Atchison.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Krista Gutierrez. Today is Monday, January 4th. We'll get to those stories in just a bit, but we are talking snow once again.
After some warmer temperatures, sort of, and John Smith has a look ahead at what we can expect for the first full week in 2016. Good morning.
Good morning, Adam and Crystal. We are going to be looking at an interesting week ahead. After a break over the weekend, things are going to start to ramp up, especially later on today. But right now, we're off to a cold start across the north. We're in the teens and 20s down to the south, into the teens and 20s here as well. We've got a couple of locations managing to reach the low 30s, Silver City and Deming being two of those locations. Now, we do have increasing clouds across the west. More showers on the way. You can see those just to our south and west over Baja, California. Those are going to be moving into our direction for later on this evening. We do have winter weather advisories across west central portions of the state, as well as a couple of winter storm watches in effect for that next storm. So we will have those increasing clouds today. Snow develops overnight. We could see a couple of those snow showers in the Albuquerque metro area. And then we stay in the storm track throughout the rest of the week. We have another storm behind this, which is going to keep the weather active. All the details, I'll break it all down for you coming up.
John, we start with this developing story this morning. APD remains quiet when it comes to two men who may have been involved in a deadly shooting over beer pong.
While one man is behind bars this morning, charged with an open count of murder, it's unclear if the other men are in custody or on the run. According to a criminal complaint, friends and neighbors gathered for a New Year's Eve party at an apartment near Central and Coors. After a fight, police say 22-year-old Nathan Ware left and came back with two unknown men. Witnesses say they forced their way into the apartment and the two men opened fire. Jory Chavez was killed and Robert McCoy critically injured. Ware has been charged with an open count of murder. He is now in jail on $1 million bond this morning.
We do feel Mr. Ware is a danger to the community as well as a possible flight risk. We do recognize that there are two probation violation holds in place, but we would still recommend to continue the bond.
Ware just got out of jail 6 months ago. He was serving time for a probation violation from a child abuse conviction.
And this makes the second time in the past week in Albuquerque a fight over beer pong left someone dead. Just last weekend, 18-year-old Arturo Villa was shot to death at a party in the South Valley. Police arrested and charged 18-year-old Isais Madrid for that killing. 22-year-old Jack Trujillo, suspected of shooting another teen at the same party, was also arrested.
Two men accused of murder are also locked up this morning on a pretty hefty bond. Deputies say Steve Salazar and Andrew Romero went to a home in the South Valley on New Year's Eve to collect a debt. According to a criminal complaint, Salazar went inside and killed Floyd Mascarenas. Both men were arrested for murder after Romero came forward to detectives. They are both booked on a $250,000 cash-only bond this morning.
Moving on to this morning, a family who used to live in Albuquerque say they have a reminder of why they left.
The Warhay family was traveling home from holidays with family in Kansas City to Phoenix. When they stopped at the Hyatt Place in Albuquerque, then overnight, thieves broke into their U-Haul and ran off with clothes and presents that the kids had just gotten for Christmas. Family says when they were living here 4 years ago, they were burglarized then as well.
We love the people, we love the neighbors, we love the culture, but unfortunately, crime seems to be a fact of life there.
The family says the most recent burglary has them wondering whether they should come back again.
We could learn more about several crashes on the west side today that kept APD busy, including a crash that involved one of their own. Both crashes happened just off I-40 near the intersection of Ouray and Coors around 7 last night. Here's video of the first one. A witness tells us a car collided with different cars coming out of the Chili's parking lot, then took off westbound on Ouray. Further down Ouray near Ladera was the second crash. That one involved a police car that had to be towed. We reached out to APD about both crashes last night, but we have not heard back from them yet.
Time now 6:04 happening now. Prosecutors are gearing up for the trial against the second of 6 police officers accused of fatally injuring Freddie Gray. The first trial for Officer William Porter was declared a mistrial in Baltimore. The second officer to be tried is Caesar Goodson Jr. His trial scheduled to begin January 11th. Goodson faces the most serious charge of all the officers, second-degree depraved heart murder. Porter is still facing 4 charges in Gray's death and will be retried in June.
This morning, conflict between Saudi Arabia and Iran continues to escalate following the Saudis' execution of a prominent Shiite clerk. Saudi Arabia formally severed diplomatic ties with Iran Sunday, giving Iranian diplomats 48 hours to leave the country. The move came hours after demonstrators in Iran stormed the Saudi embassy in Tehran, setting it on fire. State Department spokesman says the U.S. will encourage regional leaders to take affirmative steps to calm tensions there.
This morning, Donald Trump is not backing down from his comments about Muslims after being featured in an al-Qaeda affiliate recruiting video. The video was reportedly finished by Somali terrorist group al-Shabaab. It uses historic civil rights era footage of Malcolm X and new footage of Trump to label the United States a racist society. It comes just after Trump called to ban all Muslims from entering the U.S. Trump dismissed the new video in an interview on CBS's Face the Nation.
They use other people too. I mean, what am I going to do? I have to say what I have to say. And you know what I have to say? There's a problem. We have to find out what is the problem, and we have to solve that problem.
2 weeks ago, Hillary Clinton drew scrutiny when she said during a Democratic presidential debate that ISIS is using Trump's position on Muslims in recruiting videos. There's no evidence that has happened yet, despite the al-Shabaab video.
Later this week, 17 Guantanamo Bay prison detainees are expected to be transferred. Last month, Defense Secretary Ash Carter told members of Congress that the 17 detainees would be sent to other countries starting this month. Now, once the 17 prisoners are moved, there will be 90 detainees left. 59 of the remaining prisoners are not eligible to be transferred to another country, so they would need to be moved to a prison in the U.S. if Guantanamo is closed. President Obama vowed to close the Guantanamo Bay prison when he first was elected back in 2009.
Time is 6:06. Authorities in India are picking up the pieces this morning after a deadly earthquake hit that country. At least 6 people were killed when the magnitude 6.7 quake hit just before dawn this morning. At least 100 others are recovering in hospitals this morning. Several buildings were reduced to rubble in the remote area, and investigators say the deaths and injuries happened when debris from those buildings crashed into people.
A church forgives. What a pastor says a man walked into his church with that tested his vow to love thy neighbor.
Plus, an inmate filing suit, what he accuses a former prison doctor of doing during medical care.
And emotional lapel video showing the moments a missing 3-year-old is found hours after the car she was in was stolen. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to KRQE News 13 this morning. I'm Crystal Gutierrez.
I'm Adam Atchison. Today's Monday, January 4th. Day's top stories are coming up in just a moment. We'll update you on that first, though. A lot coming on in the forecast.
Sure thing. Snow heading our way once again. Let's get to John Smith.
Yeah, we have another storm on the way to New Mexico, so it's going to make for an interesting start to the work week. But most of the day, not going to be too bad. We are going to be looking at increasing clouds throughout the day today. It is a cold start. Temperatures in the teens and 20s across the north, down to the south into the teens and 20s here as well. A couple of lucky locations already reaching the low 30s. Now, we do have that storm system currently centered over Baja California. That's going to move into our direction throughout the day today, and eventually we'll start to see some of those showers develop through the late evening and overnight. We do have winter weather advisories across west central portions of the state, mainly covering the Gila over toward the Continental Divide across I-40. Now, we will have those increasing clouds today, snow developing overnight with this first storm system, but we stay in the storm track all week because behind this storm is yet another one. I'll have more details on what we can expect throughout the entire week coming up.
You okay? Come here. Come here.
That's the emotional moment on lapel video that shows when an APD officer found a missing little girl after hours of searching and an Amber Alert. Police found 3-year-old Caroline Leon Alcocar abandoned in a parking lot early Sunday morning. Investigators say she was left there by a thief who stole a car with her inside. And this morning, a sigh of relief. The 3-year-old girl who went missing for nearly 5 hours after her mom's car was stolen is back home.
Yeah, today the search for the man who police say stole the car with her inside is ramping up. Police now asking for your help. News 13's Sarah Yingling joins us with details on the suspect and how that search came to a very emotional end. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Crystal. As APD continues its search for the wanted man, this morning the officer who found the little Caroline Leon Alcocar is still swept up with emotions over the moment he spotted her.
Warm in here, okay? You sit warm, okay?
I was using my spotlight and I saw a ball of purple in the middle of a parking lot and thought that weird, and I drove into the parking lot and I immediately could tell it was a kiddo.
The man who found Caroline was Officer Chris Posha. He'd been searching for the 3-year-old along with the motorcycle group Guardians of the Children and countless other police officers. APD says the man who took her jumped into her mom's running car outside Smith's at Lomas and San Pedro just before 8:30 Saturday night. Caroline was finally found just after 1 a.m. in a parking lot near San Mateo and Indian School. In the video, Officer Posha seems calm after finding Caroline, but he says the emotion hit him later.
I'll be honest, on my way home, I started crying too. I was just very happy and thankful that we were able to find her.
A picture of the suspect was captured by surveillance cameras. If you have any information about this case, you're asked to call 242-COPS.
All right, thanks, Sarah. A very emotional video there. Police weren't the only ones searching for Caroline. The community helped those efforts as well.
And today, emotions are likely still running high for the volunteers who joined police looking for Caroline. Caroline! Those volunteers spent part of Saturday night and Sunday morning driving through neighborhoods near Smith's, calling her name. Others gathered at the store to offer help.
Yeah, I have a 3-year-old daughter at home, so it just made me want to call him, go do something. If it was mine, I'd want as many eyes and ears open as possible.
And some people are wondering why the Amber Alert didn't go out until more than 4 hours after Caroline was taken. APD tells us because it's a national system, putting one out takes a lot of time and paperwork. We're going to follow what's developing on this morning as the search for a suspect continues. We'll have the latest on air and on the KRQE News app.
Moving on to this morning, the man who police say dumped his 4-year-old with 2 drunk men is still behind bars, now facing child abuse charges. Police say they found the little girl crying outside with no jacket at the Deluxe Inn Motel near Central and Tramway. That was on Friday evening. They say the 2 men who were supposed to be taking care of her were passed out drunk. When APD tracked down her dad, Isaac Walensky, he told them he knew at least one of them had a drinking problem, but left anyway to, quote, go hustle. He's locked up on a $15,000 bond this morning.
On to this, an accused robber is also locked up this morning after police say he left a big clue on social media. According to a criminal complaint, John Ludi held up 3 7-Elevens, 2 other gas stations, a Blake's, and a pharmacy in September. In one surveillance video, police say you can see Ludi holding up the Ram gas station using his fingers as a gun before taking off with about $40 in cash and doing a lot of damage. Police say on his Facebook profile picture, he's wearing the same shirt he was wearing in one of the robberies. Police were able to connect him to the crimes using Facebook and his car. He faces 7 counts of robbery.
On to this developing story this morning. A former New Mexico prison doctor accused of sexually assaulting inmates during exams is a subject of another lawsuit. The Albuquerque Journal reports a Guadalupe County Correctional Facility inmate who alleges Dr. Mark Walden fondled him filed a lawsuit in federal court last month. Nearly 80 inmates from 2 state prisons say Walden victimized them or failed to give adequate medical care. The inmate in the latest case said he did not come forward sooner because he was embarrassed and was afraid of possible retaliation.
Time coming up on 6:36. Happening this morning, state oil authorities are watching prices closely, hoping they don't drop any further. The New Mexico Oil and Gas Association says the state had a record-producing year, but a drop in prices has many wondering if it was the end of a boom. The Carlsbad Current Argus reports oil dropped to a 7-year low. The association says that the feds are reviewing multiple new regulations that would affect New Mexico and the Carlsbad area specifically, which could lead to greater operating costs.
Moving on to news happening today, President Obama begins a major push to tackle gun violence during his final year in office. Today, the president will meet with Attorney General Loretta Lynch to discuss options for tougher gun restrictions. Later this week, he'll unveil executive actions to strengthen background checks required for gun purchases.
And also happening today, part of the San Bernardino office complex where 2 gunmen opened fire during a Christmas party is expected to partially reopen. 14 people were killed last month. While 2 of the buildings will reopen, the conference center where the massacre actually happened will stay closed indefinitely.
The father and son Oregon ranchers who set off a series of controlled burns on government land are expected to turn themselves into prison this morning. Happening right now, militia members armed with guns and walkie-talkies continue to occupy a National Wildlife Refuge in eastern Oregon in protest to their arrests. They say the Bureau of Land Management should return the land to the people. They also say the Hammonds should not have to go to prison for the burns on what they call their land in 2001 and 2006. An FBI spokesperson says they are working with local law enforcement to bring a peaceful resolution to the standoff at the refuge.
A pastor and his congregation are being praised this morning for how they handled an armed man during interrupting a New Year's Eve service. Pastor Larry Wright says the man came into his North Carolina church armed with a rifle, and when he asked him how he could help him, he says the man put the gun down and asked the church to pray for him. Just days later, he came back during an interview with a local news station to apologize.
There's the young man now. Let him in. Yeah. Hey, what's going on? That's a young man right there. How you doing, man?
And that man told the pastor he's a veteran struggling with PTSD and financial trouble. He asked to sit in with the church for services this past Sunday and was welcomed. Other members say they're happy to have him as part of their church and are no longer afraid. They've sure thought quickly.
Yes.
In a situation where it could have been a
that
lot
would be
worse.
so terrifying, especially in light of everything that's happened in the past few months.
Absolutely.
Good for them.
Yeah.